I want to welcome everybody. This is the board meeting to set the agenda for the September 19th Board of Directors meeting, and we're going to start off by calling on our city manager, Bruce Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Today we have one of our prevention and intervention programs that have concluded their program, and the kids have a presentation. Let me call on the Director of the Department of Community Programs, Dana Doucette, first. Dana.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and board, and to Bruce and Tom. We're really excited to be able to bring one of our programs here today. Very excited to have learned about a program that they did this summer where you'll see that each of these students here have written a book, and they are now actually published authors. And so with that, I would like to ask for the executive director of this program. It's the Brandon House Cultural Arts Program, and Pamela Bax is the executive director. Ms. Bax?
Thank you so much, and the mayor in his absence, to Vice Mayor, to City Council, and City Council members. We are just delighted to be here. I have to tell you that our kids are on their best behavior because when they walked in, they said, "Is this a jail?" And so I said, no, it's not a jail, but if you want to think good and so that you won't end up in jail, and that's what we try to do at Brandon House, is engage our kids in the arts so that they won't end up on the other side. We have been working with, I want to introduce, and I'm battling a cold, you guys, so excuse me. We have been working with them for a good part of 6 weeks over the summer for them to write and publish their own books. I want to introduce our literacy coordinator, who will probably take the rim and introduce our students. This is Tejal, that has been working with them for the better part of 6 weeks. Our coordinator, Mr. O.B., we call him O.B. for short, O'Brennan Moss. He's our coordinator for our after-school and summer program. And they have really been a taskmaster in getting our children to publish, to write and publish their own books. So let me turn it over. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I thank Dana and Barbara Osborne for having us and for seeing some good in us and giving us funding to run our program. Ms. Tejal.
Thank you, Dr. Bax, and to all of you, thank you for the opportunity to be here. So over the summer, we have done a lot. The program that we used was called Right Brain. And with that, over the summer, we've had a chance to learn these kids, have fun with these kids, and learn a lot of good things. At the beginning of the summer, 86% were not at grade level. By the end of the summer, 98% were at grade level by the time school started. So that was a plus. Some of the activities that the children did were they had cards in each of their packets, and in their cards, there were no words on the pictures. And so they had to use their imagination to come up with their own stories, work as groups. So that helped them to just use their imagination and work together. And then one of the things that they discovered was that not everyone has the same idea or same imagination. But the thing is, there's no right or wrong when it comes to your own story. It's your story. You make it how you want. And so I think that was the big takeaway for the students this summer. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them up. If you guys will go ahead and stand up, and I'll have you come on around. Yeah, come on. Don't be scared. No, I didn't want to act shy.
Let me just say, one of the things that happened over the summer when we did our assessment, as Tejal said, 86% of the students were not at grade level reading. And so we had to group the students in groups to publish their books. So you would see a group of students and...
Yeah, these two right here.
Okay.
So a group right here, you have Kenneth and you have Ariane. They work together, Antonio. So his book is here. They did theirs together. And tell them the name of your book.
The Dragon and a Girl.
And what,
louder.
The Dragon and a Girl.
And what grade are you in?
Third.
Second and third grade. So we had second and third grade working together on their books. And they both use their own imagination to come up with a story together. Then we have here,
Just show you using their word. Illustrated books with pictures, and they had to develop their characters and stories around the illustrated pictures.
And they even had story maps. One of the activities was involved using a story map as well. So they would look at the picture and then, based off this picture, come up with their own story, just to kind of get their mind going. So we have another one here, Travis. Tell them what grade are you in?
4th grade.
And what's the name of your book?
A pirate goes on a adventure.
And I helped him do his book. And let me tell you, he has an imagination out of this world. They did a great job. Who else? Tell them your name and the name of your book.
Ariel.
And what's the name of your book?
The Warriors.
The Warriors. And you can see his book has aliens. And so every person has a different book. And some of them have the same book, but the stories are all different. There you go. Who else do we have?
These are our two newest. They will be publishing their books this fall.
How your book up? Tell them your name and what grade you in.
My name is Chanel Howard Banks. I'm in the 3rd grade.
Good job.
My name is Leah, and I'm in the. My name is Leah Bimbel, and I'm in the 2nd grade.
These are our two shy girls. And what's your name of your book?
These superheroes.
There you go. And who else do we have? So we also had kindergarten and 1st grade. So throughout the program, we had kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. So you can imagine the different grade levels, the different reading levels. So we had to really match and group kids together. So we matched our kindergarten and 1st grade together, and Mr. O.B. We grouped some of our students together based off, of course, age group and then knowledge and where they were at as far as reading and writing levels. One of the groups we put together was kindergarten and 1st grade, and Mr. O.B., our summer program coordinator, worked with them to come up with their story, and it is amazing. I'll let him talk. Go ahead. Tell me your name.
Deontay.
How old are you?
6.
What grade are you in?
3rd grade.
And what's the name of your book?
The aliens.
Good job. And that's kindergarten and 1st grade. So we've worked with a wide range this summer. Who else? Go ahead.
Ariel.
How old are you?
11.
And what grade are you in?
6.
And tell me your name of your book.
Wolverine's Broken Toy.
And she's one of our students that's on our accelerated because she is so far advanced along with some other kids as far as their reading and writing that it just took her to different places when it comes to her imagination, and she really had a great time. And she was also able to help other kids as well. And this is her sister.
My name is Jessima Karina Hendrickson.
How old are you?
I'm 8 years old.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 3rd grade.
What's the name of your book?
A-Tree.
Say it louder.
A-Tree.
Is that all? Is that everyone?
Cheyenne.
And how old are you?
8.
And what grade are you in?
3rd.
And what's the name of your book?
The family that planted seeds.
So as you can see, the kids had a wonderful time. They are authors at kindergarten grade level. They are authors, and we plan to continue doing this throughout the rest of the year and having them publish more books and get more kids to do this as well, because it does help them when they're in school. It does help them when they later on in life. It helps them to use that imagination, use those writing and reading skills to promote communication, because a lot of times kids want to text and write shorthand. So this helps them to expand that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've got if you all would stay with us for just a few minutes, I think we've got a couple of people who want to make a comment and ask a question. This is really exciting, and that you said that 98% at grade level is really a testament to the work you did.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, may I just thank one of our trusted parents. We call her Nana Julie, and she's just been with us from since May, and just volunteering, and so we thank her for her efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wright.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Will the coordinator come back to the podium? I have a couple of questions. No, right there.
Oh, yes,
Several years ago, before the Brandon House building was torn down,
yes,
I met with this, I think This
You
is the
are
same organization.
Exactly right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I was excited about the concept, and we, of course,
Right.
they tore the building
Yes.
down, so the whole thing was supposed to be in this building.
Yes.
Which is, of course, is Ward 6. So you are the same people.
We are the same people.
Yes.
And Director Wright, I just have to thank you too, you and Director Richardson. When the building was torn down, both of you said, do not let your vision die and don't let it be synonymous with the building. And so
Exactly.
we've taken it to the next level.
Well-
And we're on 12th Street, still running strong.
Well,
Thank
I
you
am
so
so
much.
happy to know that you did not let it die, because I told you it was an exciting concept.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I would like to do is to see if we could coordinate and maybe bring some ideas to the West Central Community Center, because we have a Arts and Culture Council.
Yes, ma'am.
And this past year, we did our first youth art contest, and I would like to introduce this project to the young people there. I work a lot with this age group. We start with age 3 in our
Okay.
sports.
Yes.
And with the Arts and Culture Council, we had first, second, and third place, and we did it in conjunction with the schools. It's going to be an annual event, and we feature it in our West Central magazine.
Okay.
So this is very exciting. Now, will you tell me whether or not any of these kids are, or where are they from? What
They're
part of city?
Midtown.
Midtown,
Yes,
okay, Midtown. Okay.
Some of the students over the summer were living with their grandparents in Midtown.
Okay.
And school started, they went back home. And so we work Midtown, 72201, 2, 4, 5, and 6 zip
Okay.
codes.
Well, see, I'm 4, and I'm right now. We are working on the second issue of the West Central magazine, and I'd like to feature some of the kids. So
Yes, ma'am.
this is an exciting story, and I definitely got room for it. So can you provide me with your contact information so
can,
that I can
yes.
get with you on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I have a
Sure.
writer, and she'll be writing the story. I'm just giving her the concepts that
Okay.
the neighborhood people have said they want to see, and the community center projects and things.
Okay,
Well, congratulations.
Thank
This is so
you.
exciting. Published
you.
at this age.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great.
Thank you again, and congratulations to all of you all.
Thank you.
If you would now look at the first 6 items on the consent agenda, and if you've had time to look over those, see if anybody has any questions on items 1 through 6. Okay. 1 through 6? Director Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. Bruce, on 2, 3, and 4, are we utilizing the RFQ or RFP process? So I noticed along the line further down, we identified sole source for one purchase item for the police department. So on 2, 3, and 4, do we utilize RFQ or RFP?
I believe these were off the state contract, all of those items.
Thank you.
Director Wyrick?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Bruce, several of these I noticed were, says vendor selection made through utilization of the Houston Galveston Area Council contract. What is, that's the first I've heard about that. What, is that a consortium for cities and counties to be able to buy stuff from?
It is, and we utilized it a lot over the years, buying fire trucks. When you go off, whether it's a state contract or the Houston Galveston, you get the prices are a lot cheaper than just going to a straight bid.
Okay. So you said, I had not recognized that we did it in the past, but there's 2 or 3 of these contracts that you're able to do that on. And I guess evidently the prices are better to be able to go through that. They kind of specialize in the equipment that we need for police and
They do.
fire. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wyrick. Okay, now we'll move to the ordinances, items 7 through 10. Does anybody have a request for a presentation on any of these items? Director Wright?
Yes, ordinance number 8. I'd like to see the structures and to know if we've had any input from anybody trying to remove them.
Let me ask Mr. Garland to come forward. And I believe there's at least one that's been back before you, or is coming back before you, Mr. Garland.
Vice Mayor, members of the board, Director Wright. Specifically, we are bringing 3 properties back before the board that has been here before. 5121 West 33rd, 2521 Wolf, and 2313 South Center. All of the other properties are new, and we have heard from none of those owners. The last contact we had from the owner of 5121 West 33rd was May 30th, 2017. I think the board gave them I think 30 days to get clear title. We did meet with that particular owner on one occasion where he presented a typed plan, and he has failed to return to meet with staff to outline his financial capacity. The gentleman or the owner of 2313 Center, the staff reached out to that person on July 8th, 2017 for an update. We did not hear back from that owner until September 5th, committing to send us a plan of his rehab, which we have not heard from till today, or as of today, I'm sorry. And the 2521 Wolf property, those permits expired July 27th. As you can see, there's been no significant change in that structure. That owner was initially given a 90-day permit, and it has expired. And she has contacted the director.
Okay.
And you should, as a board, expect to see the owner next week of 2521 Wolf, as well as 2313 Center.
Okay. I want to ask a question, and I hope my colleagues will bear with me. It may sound kind of silly and kind of strange, but I get so tired of us tearing down houses. And I'm a big fan of this show called HGTV. It's a channel, and they have all of these rehab shows, and there's one in particular that I really, really like. It's called Good Bones. And what these two individuals do, they have a company called Two Chicks and a Hammer. I kid you not, that's their name. It's a mother and daughter duo. And what they do is they go into certain neighborhoods, and they buy houses, and sometimes they buy them from the city and they rehab them and they put them back on the market. Now, this is not a new concept. These people just have shows, and there's several shows like this, but this is one that's of particular interest because the last few episodes I watched, they were buying these houses from the city through their land banks. That's what piqued my interest. And so my question maybe for Mr. Moore or maybe for staff is that we have nobody in our city that does any type of rehab that would be interested in working with us on something like this. And because I know one house that these ladies bought that was $4,000. And when they got through with that house, it was an awesome house. And it was modernized. It was, it just made the whole neighborhood look good. And sometimes you can see the street, and every house on the street is not upgraded. But once that first house gets done, then there's additional investment being made. So I know we tried something like that in the Central High with the mayor's project, but it looks like this just doesn't stop. We're just continuing to have these houses come before us. So is there nobody in the city that does this?
And I don't know if Victor wants to come forward and talk about how the land bank has, and that is one of the main tenets of the land bank, is to get property, get the title cleared, and try to interest people. I mean, all we charge is what we have in it as far as what it's cost to clear the title. So that. And Victor, I don't know if you want to talk about but these are different, and these are private owners who have chosen not to do anything with their property, and that's the difficult one of the difficult things that we face here is that these are all individual private owners who have done nothing with their properties. Victor.
Yeah, and to the board, what's been the problem for a lot of them is obtaining the capital to be able to rehab the properties. A lot of them will come before you and they have estimates that are way off from what it's going to cost to bring it up to code. And the Wolf Street is a prime example where it's owned by a private individual. They're not interested in selling the property and they want to rehab it themselves. So we're constantly facing that. We have had some individuals that have approached us about being able to rehab some structures in Little Rock if we can get ownership. So there are people that are willing to do it, if we can gain ownership to the property, which we are doing via the land bank in some cases.
So, so they're not interested in any of the properties within the land bank? They're interested in other properties?
One of the hurdles with some of the properties where we own them is the owners being able to get back what they've invested in it. If you recall, when we were doing NSP, majority of those properties we sold for less than what we invested in. Right. So we were able to give like a soft second mortgage to absorb that cost, where a private developer, he wants to get a profit, not take a loss. So once I think we get some momentum in the core of the city, I think property values will increase and we'll have more private investment. But
so it's basically, and this is kind of what I thought it was my answer, but I wanted to put it out there so that y'all could know that this does really bother me, that we keep tearing down these houses and creating these weed lots. So the problem is that these houses, or any house in our land bank, it's in these areas where the property values will not support the investment that it would take and from a private developer, so they would not be able to sell it and get back out of it what they put into it.
Yeah, and one of the things we're looking at doing probably next program year is making basically what's called mortgage subsidies available for private developers. So if they get a construction loan and build a house, and then we can provide funding for the buyer. So for example, if the house cost them $120 and the person only qualifies for $100, we'll fill that $20,000 gap to kind of help move it.
So, but that would take care of the infill, but it still wouldn't help us on the rehab.
Well, I mean, if somebody do acquisition rehab for existing structure, we could do the same, but that person would still have to get ownership. Our problem is these people that don't want to sell properties, and we had the same issue with NSP. When they found the city was, coming in the area to purchase properties, then they wanted an exorbitant amount of money that was well over what it was valued.
Right. Okay.
But I think the subsidy approach will at least be an incentive for a private developer where they won't, take a huge haircut if they do develop in the inner city.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Director Wright. Director Adcock?
Yes. We received a letter today. I think Director Hendricks had the person send it to us from a Ben Poe, Victor. And this is about the property at 2521 Wolf Street. And you was talking about the lady wanted to rehab this, but she just hadn't got the money. But I think in this letter, we see another side of it, how these neighborhood people get so tired of months after months of watching these properties and nothing being done. So is this woman going to come back and ask us again for more time?
She probably will. as you recall, back in April when this one was before the board, I believe she came to the agenda meeting and the board meeting, and her husband is one that's he's deceased code officer with the city, and he passed a few years ago. I think 2012, I think is when he passed, but we had it before you for condemnation to take down, and she had mentioned at that time she had gone to some lending institutions to try to secure financing. We did. You all gave her an extension. She had the 90-day permit, as Ed previously mentioned. We went in and took pictures on September 5th or 6th, and there was no significant progress at all. I did speak with her, and she mentioned she wanted me to give her approval for another 90 days, and I said you need to come back before this body and request that. But there's been no progress since April.
Okay. Have you seen the letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was going to give it to you. Thank you. Mr. Moore, I also would like the board to know that on October the 15th, the Love Neighborhood is going to have an open house on the first house that's been rehabbed. And you may want to come and see how that is done and what all has been done in that house. This is the first one. The city has purchased 4 houses in that neighborhood to revitalize. So on October the 15th, it's a Sunday afternoon, and it'll be 2 to 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Richardson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Victor, Ed, I have one question about a specific property, and I want to piggyback on a couple of questions that have been asked previously. The home on 3400, I believe, West 14th, is that the corner of 14th and Martin? I think that's in Director Hendricks' ward. I think it's a burnout, that home right there. How long has that been burned? I mean, that's quite a while ago, has it not been? That house burned down quite a while ago. Was that June the 2nd that picture was taken? I believe the house burned down in May or so, and that's in Director Hendricks' ward.
Director Richardson, I don't have a date here, but it was declared April 24th, 2017 as an unsafe vacant structure. Our process now is, and if I may kind of project, we probably got notified then from the fire department. That's the way the process works now. When the fire department goes out on fires throughout the course of a week, they will email code enforcement the addresses that had structure fires, and then we generally respond.
So potentially,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Potentially, it could have caught fire after it was declared vacant and unsafe, correct?
It could have, and that's why I said I would really want to verify the fire date. We usually get an affidavit from the fire department as well to put as a part of this file, so I can get that date back to you that it actually was burned.
Okay, thank you. I think that speaks to an issue that's been brought up previously. There seems to be a concentration of these condemnations, demolitions in 3 wards. I think 1, 2, and 6. And I know a number of us have talked about this before, and Tom, you may jump in and help me understand what legal abilities we may have, because I know in NSP 1 and 2, we did some new structures and some rehabilitation on some existing structures, correct?
I think that's correct.
Is that correct? NSP 1 and NSP 2. So Tom, to the point that a number of us have been bringing to the board, to our colleagues, are there any mechanisms in place? A lot of these homes are declared vacant and unsafe long before they get into condition of demolition. Are there any mechanisms we can put in place where the city can obtain ownership without, someone just mentioned, bringing any kind of financial loss, obtain ownerships and figure out federal funding or additional funding to provide incentives for ownerships of these homes, because there are a concentration of them that resemble war zones. And coincidentally, or not coincidentally, there seems to be areas where we have the highest criminal activity in our community. So are there any mechanism, Tom, we can put in place or research or?
Director Richardson, as I've said for years, the board
been
has
bringing
the
up for
authority
years.
to go in and rehabilitate a home without taking ownership to it and then put a lien on the value of the property for the amount of doing so. Now, between federal monies and state monies and city monies, there are some confusions there, and I leave that to Victor because he knows those things right and left. But y'all have got the authority to do that now. It's just you haven't really wanted to make the investment, and they've had the monies that came up this year that have been used in the Love Neighborhood Association as a pilot program to show how that can be done and what can be done as a result of that.
So, Tom, in memo form, could you provide us opportunities to observe our options or look at some of the things we can observe, we can research and figure out ways to utilize in order to rehab some of these communities? Because it seems to be a concentration of them in certain parts of our community that make these communities look like war zone. And I think Victor or someone made mention to the extent of momentum in the core of our city. I think it gives us opportunities to provide incentives or anchors for revitalization or rehabilitation in certain parts of our community. As I mentioned, that seems to be the core of our criminal activity. One of the things I noticed when doing some research for foreclosure resolutions, foreclosures activity, that there seems to be a direct correlation. One of the things I found interesting was an increased number of foreclosed buildings. You can attribute an increased percentage of criminal activity based on the number of foreclosed buildings, which I don't think is surprising to a lot of us, but I think it's something that we need to look at all options we have available to us to help create some momentum with respect to revitalization, rehabilitation, to help us address not just the infrastructure, not just the static part of our community, but the actual activity in the community that I think provides opportunities for a lot of criminal activity to occur. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hendricks?
Thank you. I want, Victor, would you come back up for 25, 21? And Mr. Moore, would you share with me what Joan was saying? Was that about this property? Open house or something?
No, it's about another area.
Okay. Well, what I want to ask you, Victor, how long has this house come before us? A year?
I think it's been before you twice for condemnation, but it was declared unsafe vacant in July of 2014.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to share with Mr. Moore that some of the board members did receive an appeal. So we'll know what we're going to do next week when this thing comes before us. It's ridiculous. Thank you, dear.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Director Hendricks. Director Wright?
Yes, I have one more question. Victor, you remember the foreclosure program that I brought back from the National League of Cities? Can you give the board an update on that, please?
Yes, ma'am. We are working on the selection process, fine-tuning the selection process on that. What we ran into, there's not many companies or other RFPs out there that languages, so we're trying to make sure that we have it tight enough so we won't have unqualified people that think they can do the mortgage foreclosure. Okay. So that's kind of where we are.
And let me also add, though, there are a lot of banks that are based in Little Rock some of the banks are based in Little Rock that have foreclosures. And I thought it was important or prudent for us to sit down with the banking community before we bring this forward. So that's really the next step.
Okay, well, I agree with that. I thought that was part of the process that we were going to follow to make sure that the realtors and the banks knew that we were looking at this and get their input.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Hendricks.
Victor, I want to ask you, in your conversation, you mentioned something about we, and I think you were talking about the city, would be able to provide some funds if a person had a house that was 125, they only had 100. Where's that 25 coming from?
Yeah, what I was talking about with our federal programs, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, we can create a pool of money that can be used to subsidize the buyer. So it would be federal dollars that we have, the city.
Where the money is decreased.
I understand.
So where's it coming from?
I understand. We would just have to make that one of our line items as part of our upcoming year's
we do that.
activities.
Where is the money coming from?
It's from HUD.
Okay.
So those individuals have to be at or below 80% of area median income. So it'd have to be low, moderate income folks that could take advantage of that subsidy.
So you already have the information that HUD will provide these funds?
We get an annual allocation of HUD dollars to do various activities, and that's something that we can use it for, is to subsidize buyers.
I'm going to say it again, the money has been cut.
I understand.
Yeah, well, see, I don't want you telling people stuff that's not real.
Well,
And I have to bump these people. Be quiet, Bruce.
But what he's saying is that this is an activity that we can do, but that means we're not something that we have normally done in the past.
Yeah.
We're going to have to reduce.
Well, Bruce, we got to be real. The money has been from D.C. That's where it's coming from, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am, but recognizing some of the issues we're facing, what you all been talking about, I'm saying that's a tool we can use to try to provide some incentive. But yeah, we will have to reduce something else that we're doing to enable to do that. But
yeah, I just want you to put it on the line, because see, as an elected official, then when I get out there in that neighborhood, it's something different from the people who are voting. And you know, I'm not a person who whitewash nothing. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions on item 11? Director Hines?
Yeah, Bruce, just a question. Why such a big area of right-of-way? Just curious. I mean, I understand the synopsis of this, but just kind of seems odd that we'd have this big of a right-of-way dedication on the original plat. And just wanted some background.
Same question when it came up.
And it's pretty steep, and there's a, I want to say that, because this is the entrance to my neighborhood, the lake, actually the dam, essentially Wellington Hills Road is essentially the dam for the lake, and there's a drainage that I think goes under the road and comes out on that piece of property, so just kind of curious.
Vice Mayor, board members, Director Hines. Joshua, if you'll bring up that sketch for that'll kind of help explain some of that. When this right-of-way was dedicated at the intersection for the lots, that was, from the best staff can come up with at the time, was it was done through a lot plat, and before the road was put in, particularly Wellington Hills Road, and it was anticipated to come in at a different angle than what it did. Okay. And that alignment and that construction, from that right-of-way dedication, they dedicated on the other side of Wellington Hills a right-of-way to get the road in. There's adequate right-of-way for a master street plan for that intersection. Okay. Right. And so this was just excess right-of-way that was dedicated, in that plat. And there is some utilities that run through there. So even in this abandonment, the entire parcel, the piece that you see in abandonment for right-of-way is still going to be retained as easement.
Okay.
Because there's other utilities that are in there. There's gas and AT&T and some other stuff.
Can you verify that there's drainage in there from because that lake's essentially a stormwater collection facility, and there's essentially, I guess you'd call it a drain at the end of the lake. When the lake fills up to a certain level, it overflows into that. And I want to say, I thought it discharged under the road onto that piece of property. I just want to make sure we're not getting into. You could just ask Joe about it.
I'll have to get that verified for you and send out.
Thanks. That's all I had.
Thank you, Director Hines. We have nobody else has a light on. Any further questions? Okay, Director Wyrick.
Can we have a presentation on item number 10?
Let me ask our Animal Services Manager, Mr. Rourke, to come forward.
Vice Mayor Webb, members of the board, Director Wyrick. What we're doing with this ordinance is just clarifying our current ordinance, which it discusses extreme temperatures. And we're just setting what extreme temperatures mean, and also tells us what we can do once we find an animal in a vehicle that's in distress.
So will the animal control officer be the control person? Is he the one that's going to monitor the temperature? Is he the one that's going to be called if someone calls in that a dog's in a, or an animal's in a car unattended?
Yes,
Or in the
ma'am.
back of a trailer or truck?
Yes, ma'am. What we have is usually police is the first to call, and then they call us, and if it's after hours, it'd be on call. All the officers will be equipped with the infrared thermometer.
Okay, I wondered about
That we
that.
will be able to tell what the temperature is inside the vehicle, and then it gives us some ranges outside that will help us determine what action to take.
Okay. What about livestock that's carried in trailers?
Well, this deals with animals, so we're going to be dealing with all animals the same.
So you cannot you cannot have livestock in a trailer in temperature less than 30 degrees or more than 70 degrees.
No, that's not what the ordinance does. The ordinance at that point deals with whether the animal is in distress. In terms of traveling over an interstate carrying livestock, I doubt that we would even be called because they're not going to stop. But where the city comes involved, it's when they're stopped someplace within the city, the extreme temperatures are there and the animals are in distress. And the in distress language is what I think Mr. Roark needs to touch upon, because it's not just temperature based in that situation. Most livestock things, for example, I've seen have openings and everything for air to get through. Some are temperature controlled, particularly for horses.
If they're race horses, they are.
Yeah, and so forth. But
Well, I'm probably the only one in this room that's concerned about that, because I do have animals that are carried in trailers from point to point, and sometimes they're parked.
Yeah,
So I want to know what the boundaries are for that.
Well, we've not received, as far as I can remember, any calls on livestock in 10 years. So I'm assuming that we won't, unless somebody pulls, say, on a parking lot and just lets them set for a long period of time and then call us, and then we'll have to make the determination at that time. But we're not going to go out looking for people that own livestock. I think the focus of this is animals that are in cars with the windows mainly rolled up, with the sun beating down on them, so that we can address that situation quickly.
And I appreciate that, but when you talked about them being in the back of a truck, you know, and the temperatures that you've outlined, then that made me think about livestock trailers, because unless you're an expensive racehorse, you probably don't have air conditioning in a trailer, and they could be parked from time to time. So
I can tell you that the situation that we're looking at as far as the back of the truck is dogs cannot run loose in the back of a truck, so we worry about them being confined in a crate or small area, a dog box, and having to stay in a very confined area, which will be very stressful.
So that's the focus of this ordinance, is the inside of a car and the confinement in the back of a truck.
Yes, ma'am. I believe that's the focus.
I've got a question.
Okay.
I've got several. Is yours on this? Director Hines?
Okay, Tracy, I'm kind of, I just want to verify. So on this, animal left or is confined in an open truck bed with outside temperature is 70, is that correct? 70 degrees or greater?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I've got my, and this goes in cold weather temperature, I've got my lab in a kennel in the back of my truck because I don't ever let them run loose. And the kennel's ventilated. Is that what you're looking at?
We're looking at, because there's been studies to show, and there's actually a graph that I can get for everyone that will show that a temperature increase in about 20 minutes will be about 40 degrees inside a confined area.
Right. I'm talking about in a ventilated kennel that's covered that we all use to transport our dogs in. I'm just concerned. We've got a lot of folks.
Director Hines, that's only going to apply if the animal is in actual distress.
Yes, sir. It's also one of the stipulations.
Okay, and unattended. All right, I'm just, we're setting some pretty broad parameters there, and we got a lot of folks that, and I take very good care of my animals, and they all transport them in trucks. I know some of them that are training dogs transport a lot, and we do a good job to take care of them. I just don't want to see anybody getting sideways when an animal's not in distress. So, all right, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Hendricks.
Tracy,
Yes, ma'am.
this would be a new law. Is this what's happening with this?
It's not really a new law. We are just clarifying existing ordinance, which talks about extreme temperatures, does not talk about actual car animals in a car.
Is this happening? Do you know whether this may be happening in some other places already?
It has been. There have been ordinances around the country that we use to model this on, and there was a recent ordinance in Fayetteville that was passed in this regard. And the ordinance was taken to Animal Services, and they helped us do some modulation on the temperatures for the closed vehicle. But yes, this is done in other places around the country.
Tom, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, the last that you said.
Oh, it is done in other places around the country. There has been a recent ordinance in Fayetteville that I think helped to prompt this one. And we worked with Animal Services on the temperatures. We worked with other organizations on the temperatures, and Animal Services asked us to modify that, and we did.
Okay. The last thing I want to ask you, 2,900 wolf, have we had any luck?
20, was it
You know,
27,
the
24?
the four dogs and two of them roam all the time.
Yes, ma'am. I've been over there, and I have not been able to make contact. No, they won't answer the door.
I'm going to get a name out. I'll call and give it to you. I found out what. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Wright?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just, before we go, I just wanted to share with the board, I happened to glance at my phone and I had this, I don't know if it's a text or I don't know what is on, you know, all this Facebooking and stuff. But anyway, it's coming to Little Rock is a real estate investment training, and it's from one of the HGTV people that I watch. It's a show called Love It or List It, and her name is Hillary Farr. So she'll be coming to Little Rock on September 26th, and one of the things they do is they renovate houses and they put them back on the market. So hopefully one of our citizens will see this advertisement and register. Hopefully they'll do some work in our communities. So anyway,
Thank
popped
you.
up on my phone.
Thank you, Director Wright.
So hopefully it'll take off.
Director Hines, is this another Director Hendricks?
That to me, what you're talking. I mean, tonight, I don't do that kind of stuff in public. I wanted to ask Mr. Moore before we go, would you tell me what it was that Joan was saying, because I didn't hear her, October something, and where?
I can't, is it October 15th, did you say?
October 15th from 2 to 4. And where? What
Over at the Love Neighborhood Association, it is 2. I can't hear you either.
Bruce can't hear you. You know you're in
2218. So, 2218 Martin, from 2 to 4.
I know nothing about it. Okay, I'll have somebody there.
Director Adcock.
I just wanted to respond to Bruce. It's October the 15th, 2 to 4 p.m. at 2218 Martin.
Can you have Laura send that out to us?
You all get an invitation.
Okay. And Director Hendricks, is this another question? Okay. Okay. Seeing no further questions, that's it.
Good job.